Hey, what is up, dudes in the desk? Long time no see. This is Dudediligence here, and today in this video we are gonna talk about MMAT's earnings, or we can say it as the failed earning report. Why is it called failed earning report? Because on March 2nd, 2022, MMAT failed to timely file their 10K, which is their annual report, which included their fourth quarter result from last year. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you guys why is that a bad thing and what kind of message they're sending out to the broader institutional investors and the rest of the investor group. At the same time, we're going to go over a little bit about the internal control and go over some of their auditing statements and sort of explain to you guys. A lot of you guys are like, Didi, what does the internal control actually imply? Like, what does that really mean? Because it's such like a broad term and such a sort of like an overused term. Like, for example, if you see anything wrong with the company, you almost like if you're in the accounting field, you will say, oh, there must be something wrong with their internal control system. But what exactly? Like, what would be an example for MMAT to have an internal control issue? In this video, I'm gonna highlight that, and I'm gonna tell you guys exactly what is implying that happened, and we're gonna run sort of like a little, not really a little experiment. We're just gonna talk a little bit about their earnings revenue numbers and why is it gonna be really bad leading toward 2022, and sort of the way how they recognize their revenue and sort of like a breakdown of their revenue component. Because we got some really salty Twitter tweets about our tweets regarding MMAT, 3 months ago, because we basically bashed on their earnings and say, these revenue numbers are so bad. And because, I understand most of us are retail investors, we look at $4 million in revenue, we're like, oh my God, that's so good. But if you break it down, you will realize that, oh my God, it's actually really bad. And that's actually connected with the internal control issue. And later, the last segment of the video, we're going to talk about why, not able to file a timely 10K screams out recipe for disaster. And then all of the numbers we see right now might not even be the final number, because the reason why they cannot file their 10K on time is because of Torchlight, the oil the gas and oil segment, and also because of there's some intricacy within their business model in terms of like how these entire companies are run, and we have some assumption about that too. All right, let's first talk about the reason why they cannot file their 10K on time, which leads to the internal control issue. Okay, so MMAT is filing this notice, okay, of late filing on Form 12B25. For those of you who are curious what 12B25, it's basically this form, and 12B25 is a very interesting segment of 12B, but this is not finance class. We're probably not going to cover that. But for those of you who want me to talk about like the sub clauses in 12B, I'm more than welcome to ask that question in the comment section, because when you're investing in ETFs, 12B and 12B charges are kind of important in an expense ratio sort of situation here. The reason why they're fully filing is because it is unable, without unreasonable effect or expense, to file its annual report to Form 10K for its fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, aka annual report within the prescribed time period. As will be disclosed in more detail in company's Form 10K for the period ended December 31st, 2021, the company management concluded that the company's internal control over financial reporting was not effective as of December 31st, 2021, due to material weakness in internal control over financial reporting, and due to such material weakness, the company disclosed controls and procedures were not effective as of December 31st, 2021. Because of these material weakness and associated delay in completing the company's accounting work for the Form 10K, including accounting work related to the company's oil and gas asset, the company required additional time to file the Form 10K. So from here, we know that Oregon Day project or oil coal is very complex, we know, but the thing is including, but not limited to though. Because I also know that in order to conclude the merger, there are also some very interesting auditing work that they cannot provide sufficient evidence of internal control. For example, the $40 million they claim that they lost in financial instrument, which in reality, if you break it down, the way how they broker these loan deals was banks, with their senior staff or with their senior management is a little bit iffy. And then later on in this video, I'm gonna sort of go on YouTube, or not really go on YouTube, go on Google and search what internal return means, and you guys will be like, it's so hard to understand. But I will just break it down what exactly it means. It has something to do with financial fraud. Okay, the company requires additional time to file the Form 10K. The company anticipates filing the Form 10K as soon as practicable and no later than 15 calendar days following the prescribed due date in accordance to the rule. So we anticipate them to file a amended, updated 10K by the time of basically March 17th, which is next week. So right now it's about Thursday, so by next Thursday. But based on our data set and based on heuristic of how MMAT file their reports, we probably would say they want to drag it down to the latest moment, because there are actually a lot of issues, considering internal control is actually a huge issue. So a lot of you are really curious. You guys might ask, what is internal control? Well, internal control as defined by the Committee of Sponsoring Organization, blah, 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 by COSO, is a process effected by the entity's board of directors or trustees, management, or other personnel designated or designed to produce or provide reasonable assurance regarding the achievement of objects in the following category: effectiveness and efficiency of operations, reliability of financial reporting, compliance with applicable laws and regulations. So in the case of MMAT, it might be a little bit hard to understand, so I'm just going to break it down. So there are several possible inadequate practice of internal control that might happen. First one of them would be separation of duties. For example, it is a CFO's duty to sort of do reportings, but it's not CFO's duty to basically do certain operations, or when work duties. For example, like the internal control is all about check and balances. Let's just say you have an order coming in for $10 million, and then you sort of like, one of the things that CFO will do is the CFO will go back to the customer or go back to the person who's in charge of this and say, is there any confirmation that we can do with this? And then there should be a internal control process that establishes in the company to confirm these things, and making sure that not only one person is making all of these crucial deals, and then this person is, let's just say, the majority vote holding members, or the person who's basically have control over management. We want to make sure that not just one person become the dictator of the company. This is like the flow of how the democratic business processes are. Physical control could also be an issue, but the thing is, metamaterial doesn't really produce that much of a sort of like, really produce that much of the hardware. They're essentially still in the process of providing a POC, which is proof of concept, to OEMs, which is original equipment manufacturers, and then they're not really pushing that route as fast as we want them to be. Another thing that we want to really talk about for internal control, I think they have problem with information processing controls. Like, for example, when a data is processed, you gotta check the accuracy, check the completeness, authorization of transaction, and all this kind of stuff. And data entry, like you have to fact check and back check for multiple times. And then whenever you are, for example, tweeting stuff online or saying stuff in your PR, you gotta do a lot of these information auditing. But if you are a accounting professional and you go look at all of their PR transcripts and look at all of their information that they disclosed, they are subpar. It means they doesn't meet the standard of a NASDAQ SEC standard to make sure that they inform the investors what they really need to inform. Essentially, what a bad internal control implies is there might or might not be but there will probably be a high level or high probability of fraud or financial fraud in this company. And I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I mean, again, 5 or 6 months ago, we got hate mailed, right? We got absolutely hated and backlashes because we say there might be some financial fraud things coming out or going on, and then there might be some internal control, or there might be some auditing stuff or auditing issues in their next 10K that's gonna come out by the end of 2022. Which in here, everything just comes true. you know, and we don't want to point any fingers. And again, we're not financial advisors. We do not get any financial advices, but we're just here to say it's not like, hey, you know, well, sucks for you. We are right. We're just here to say that we're just here to iterate that, hey, we post our old video with great intentions and we suspect that there might be financial fraud. We're not really sure. And you know, everything we say on the channel is for shits and giggles. So it's just some random speculations. And if it's right, then it's right, you know? All right, let's talk a little bit about their revenues, okay? So one of our YouTube comments and saying, oh my God, you know, MMAT, they just have $4 million worth of revenue, no big deal. He's being really sarcastic and basically just making fun of us and saying, hey, this company have $4 million of revenue, and you know, it must worth something, right? But does it though? If you time their per share price times their outstanding share, what multiplier are we trading at for the total revenue? I mean, again, you guys are gonna be like, oh my God, Oli, just smart ass shit. Stop talking about smart ass shit. Let me just give you a perspective. So if your total revenue is about $4 million, what is your, one of the most important thing to look at is your total expense. If your total expense exceeds your total revenue, that just means internally, financially speaking, you have a poor management team that, actually it depends. In the case of metamaterial, let's just say if your total expense and if your company's CEO salary or your company's top management salary is about half of the revenue or more than half of the revenue you make, and your company is continuously losing money year to year, and your customer acquisition process is not accelerating, means the growth of your company is stalling, which in this case, MMAT never had a huge growth. Their growth were sort of expected or speculated by people based on the stock price, but in terms of their sell volume, in terms of their development revenue volume, it's actually laid flat. And you guys are like, no, but developmental revenue actually increased. Did it really? The only $1.7 million increase, $1.7 million increase in developmental revenue is actually from the revenue from nanotech. And then you spend about $60 million acquiring nanotech. That means your net operating cash flow or your net cash flow on this deal is negative. That means in order to make that investment back from acquiring nanotech, you have to operate this company for more than 50 years. See, think about this, right? And you guys are like, what about the another $1 million revenue recognized by achieving performance standards of called Covestro, right? Which is like a Dutch company that provided films and you know, high performance lenses or whatever. But here's the reality of this. If you go look at the specific contract of this contract with Covestro, you'll realize that $1 million is literally $1 million metamaterial actually paid to them as a collateral before. And then once they perform their conditions laid out in the contract, they get $1 million back, and later on they would get in total $6 million. But here's the interesting part. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't exactly remember how much money was in that contract, but I think it's ballpark from $3 million to $6 million. But for the purpose of metamaterial, no matter if they make $3 million or $6 million in revenue in this total Covestro deal, their margin is actually really, really thin. Because Covestro owns the core pattern of the product that Covestro wants to perform, and they can literally just skip metamaterial because metamaterial actually needs Covestro's product to basically what metamaterial is developing is basically the lens. And in order for that lens to work, there's a layer of raw material in there is produced by Covestro. And then so metamaterial owns the patent of the entire product, but Covestro owns the patent for that specific film. And then that specific film is sort of like a make or break situation for that product. So that means Covestro have 100% control over the supply chain and 100% control over the actual price of supply or cost of goods sold for metamaterial, which means in this deal, metamaterial have no leverage on this supplier whatsoever. So this $1 million, I wouldn't see it as a potential asset. It would just be potential liability. So really, their total developmental revenue from their core company is less than $1 million. And then you go back and look at 2019, 2018, 2017, and 2020, you will realize that, oh, yeah, they make about $1 million-ish in developmental revenue every single year anyways. And then look at where do they get those developmental revenues. Oh, wait, those are contracts from 4 or 5 years ago. So what happens during 2023? When all of these contracts are expired, is it going to get re-signed? The economic condition is going to be really bad, a new recession is coming. Are they really going to get those contracts anymore? Right? This is one of the things you have to consider here. This is why I said, in the intro that it's actually screaming disaster here. One of the reasons they cannot provide internal control is, I suspect, is they can actually not provide the definitive term or the potential for more developmental revenue to come in. Therefore, the risk factor in this company actually outweighs the reward factor of the company. And then, oopsie, sorry. And then in the end, what's gonna happen is the internal control team of the auditing team have doubts that this company will actually have growing perpetuity or perpetuity concerns, which means they're concerned that the company might not continue to operate like 5 or 6 years ahead. Does that make sense? I mean, we're not talking about financial fraud or anything here anymore. That was the previous section. In here, we're just talking about the current revenue stream and cash flow stream cannot sustain this company's operation flow for the next 5 years. Impossible. Why? Here is why. Expense. If you type in expense and you look at this, their general admin expense is $29 million. How ridiculous is that? That's almost 7 times more than their revenue. And guess what? Let's look at how much they're paying themselves. Let's see how much they're paying themselves. $3 million increase in salaries and benefit primarily due to $2 million increase due to incurring a $1.1 million salary expense for general headcount expansion in 2021. As well as a recording accrued bonus of $0.9 million. Okay, $0.9 million in salary expenses in relation to management of and maintenance of the oil assets acquired by Torch. You guys are like, no, those Torch assets doesn't cost any money of the investors, does it though? Almost $1 million there. 4 wells, technically they drilled 6, 2 failed, they have 4 left. Sorry, my thing is bad. And if you go and look at George's salary, their CFO salary, their CTO salary, screams out utter disaster there. It's just absolute disaster. I don't even think they intend to run this company to success. I think they intend to cash out. And, for those of you who sort of start to have this doubt, or all of you who are Sterling sort of followers or whatever, just want a fresh new perspective on this. I mean, again, we are literally the first one to come out and ask about internal control questions for metamaterial, and we got backlash. But at this point, I don't even hold this stock. It's just because my subscribers does. This is why I still follow this, and also because my regular daytime job is very consuming, and my boss loves me. I work directly. I basically follow orders directly from the CEO. But yeah, this is it. And then you guys will probably see a lot of selling of options and disposal of options, selling of stock in the next few months from MMAT's management team. I can't guarantee that it will come true, but it probably will be. And I haven't checked their reporting for Form 4 yet, but I would suspect that even last week there are some people cashing out already, because this reporting just screams out potential fraud and screams out SEC investigation. All right, see you guys on the upside. Hope you like this video. If you like this video, smash the like button and subscribe. See you guys on the upside. And also, if you like and want to support our content, we want to support truth in the financial market. We have our Patreon. It's only $10 per month, and it's totally worth it. You get a platform to communicate with me directly if you ask questions regarding stock. I will give you non-financial advice and will lead you to like through my logic and pull some of my trades. But because the volatile nature of the market right now, I don't want to give you guys a lot of volatile trade, because I know that a lot of you don't have the discipline to execute a lot of your stop losses and everything, and you tend to make gambling plays. So usually I just let majority of the Discord be, let you guys bloom or grow or whatever. Feel free to discuss whatever you want in the Discord. Discord link is also down below. And again, don't panic, keep calm, and just carry on.